guys. Welcome back to the Average Podcast. We are here today with Aaron. We got David as well. Myself, obviously, as the host, Marco, and Curtis. So today we have a very interesting topic to discuss, and it's something that I've been looking into for a good while now. Though I'm not sure if any of the viewers have heard of this before, but it's called the Humanities, and it's basically a field of study. Now, do you guys have any idea what the humanities are, even remotely? If not, that's
No,
completely fine.
No.
nah,
Yeah, because I really didn't
not
either at first.
actually not human.
Yes, thank you. Not
Thank
human.
you.
Thank you, David. So, I guess I can kind of go over what the humanities are, and we can just kind of riff from there. But the humanities is really interesting because it's, I guess, very, very expansive, you could say, to the point to where it's almost hard. Well, it is hard to actually define what the humanities is and give a good definition, just because of how expansive it is as a topic. But I remember from my old humanities class at the very beginning, we picked out a good five different definitions that we're kind of able to read. So I'm just gonna read through these real quick, and then after that, you can kind of tell me if you gathered anything from them in the slightest. So the first definition here we have from the National Foundation on the Arts and the Humanities Act, which is an act of Congress, states the following. The term humanities includes, but is not limited to, the study and interpretation of the following: language, both modern and classical, uh, linguistics, literature, history, juris. Marco, you know how words work, right?
Jurisprudence.
Jurisprudence. Thank you. Jurisprudence, philosophy, archaeology, comparative religion, ethics, the history, criticism, and theory of the arts, those aspects of social sciences which have humanistic content and employ humanistic methods, and the study and application of the humanities to the human environment with particular attention to reflecting our diverse heritage, traditions, and history, and to the relevance of the humanities to the current conditions of natural life. So, that's kind of a doozy of a definition. And I honestly, even personally, I can hardly take anything away from that in the slightest. But did anyone take anything away from that?
The ethics part is very
Okay, so the ethics,
like
right?
yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well,
I mean, just the definition itself, I feel like it makes sense. It's just the study of things that humans or people, they do, but it's somewhat hard to define individually. Like you could, most of these topics that you notice, they have some sort of what's the word? Like they're somewhat um, um
Verbose.
huh?
Big brain.
Yeah, but
They're
they
they're
always come with
complicated.
they're always like they come with different perspectives. You can't say like, oh, a car like you can't like it's like or mechanics, for
Yeah, like
example.
people have
Mechanics
opinions
is
and
just
like
black and white.
perspectives.
But for example, language, history, there's always two sides to history. When it comes to ethics, there's always two sides to history. When it comes to religion, there's always many sides to religion that see it that have different perspectives of each. Most of these topics actually are somewhat open to interpretation. They're very controversial. Controversial. That's the word that I was saying. That I was looking for.
yeah, you know what? You actually quite hit the nail on the head. Like, the humanities is kind of exactly what you're saying. It's in my own definition, the humanities is the study of, I guess, the way humans interact with each other. Like, what? I'm forgetting how to use my brain for a second. But yeah, so in my own terms, the humanities is kind of how humans interact with one another. And that may be, or not, maybe not with each other, but interact with, the known universe. So that does involve the physical aspect of it, like how I interact with, I guess, the things in life or the world as a whole. So how maybe for example, how I'm contributing to global warming or how we are contributing to the pollution of the planet. I would venture to say that that's falls under the humanities branch because it's how humans are interacting with nature.
Yeah, and that
But the
also
thing,
could be like fall back to ethics.
yeah,
Is
well,
you think it's
exactly.
ethical
With
to,
each other, yeah.
yeah, you think it's that like
Current
maybe
society.
you threw something in the floor and I'm with you, and you're just like in your perspective like, oh, it's not that bad. In my perspective, it could be like that's messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other half of the humanities that is very, I guess, a little bit harder to kind of put under the microscope, but it's how humans interact with each other in, I guess, a non-physical way. So like again, what it boils down to, right? So like ethics, language, religion, history, most things that are non-physical but are still how humans interact with things, like how history shows, how humanity over the course of time has, I guess, led to pollution of the planet. That totally makes sense in like the overarching umbrella of the humanities, I would venture to say. So I think like that's a better way to kind of narrow down what the humanities is not try and put it in like compartmentalize it, I guess. Like it's language, it's history, it's this, it's that. And just go with the more expansive, like humanities is just like how humans do things. And
What's in the name? Humanity.
wow, thank you.
God.
Oh, bro, you already
You
know.
deserve your
Very
PhD
good.
like on the spot.
Yes.
I'm real
Thank
proud of
you.
you for that one.
Ties in really nicely with like D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, right? Because you have a bunch of people who put it's all about perspective. A bunch of people put themselves in the perspective of a character and they follow a storyline, an idea, and they follow it through. And although they are not, living the lives of their characters, they try to understand the world around them by fitting that perspective. And so when you're telling me about humanities, I'm thinking a lot about that perspective. You see how people interact and how they use the things around them. And so applying that to, my major, mechanical engineering, if I'm going to design a part, if I'm going to design some kind of machine, I need to have in perspective who's going to use it and what's the ease of use, the
Mhm.
access. Got to make sure it's legible and understandable because I may understand it, but other people won't. And it's about, putting yourself in those shoes. And that's what I've taken away from this whole humanities thing.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. One of the things we did in my biomed class this semester was talk a lot about customer needs and how to like evaluate customer needs. And it's really interesting that you bring that up because I actually hadn't thought of it from the humanities point of view before. But I think it actually like 100% goes hand in hand with the humanities. You have to be able to really, I guess, I guess it's like perspective, right? You need to be able to get into the point of view of your intended audience, especially because like for someone like me who wants to go on to create um like medical devices, you have to be able to understand your what is it, intended audience. You have to be able to understand what they need, and other than what they need, like I guess other things like culturally, right? And ethics wise. I can't go make medical devices in a completely unjust or immoral way because I mean no one would want to support that. No one would want to use that. If I went about making a device using extremely controversial methods, who would like and who in the right mind would actually go and buy something like that? And honestly, I
Well,
can't think of anything like off the top of my head, but if I do, I'll bring it back up in a little bit. But it's kind of just like you need to understand like the ethics and morals around what you're doing when you're, I guess, trying to create something to be able to actually have it be successful and usable by the people you want to use it.
but at the end of the day, you can't define ethics and morality when you're trying to create something for an entire group of people. For example, for you, you think what's the line for you when or in your like in this hypothetical scenario of like creating or like this future scenario of you creating medical devices, right?
Mhm.
What's the line that you're not willing to cross when it comes to implementation? For example, someone else doing it, their line might be way lower than yours, or some people might might be willing to cross that line. Maybe for you, it's I don't know, some sort of animal testing. Maybe it's like, you know what, up to an extent, I'm willing to test on animals. I'm going to, even if it kills them, even if it gives them even if there's negative side effects that are very inhumane, it's for the greater good. It's for science. There's people that are willing to go all the way down to people that they don't care. They use prison inmates in a lot of experimentation. You could argue that's very unethical and moral. I don't really care about my opinion right now, but there's people that could argue that it's so. There's other people that argue that it's not, because there. So you could say that it relates to your field. It's just, I feel like even if it's related to a field, it could be a field like, no matter, even it could be a very specific field, but it's going to vary person through by person depending on their morality and what they think.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's more like it kind of, you can't really use it as a blanket statement, basically.
Yeah,
Like even the word like ethics, I guess, dropping the word ethics is so broad. It's kind of hard to put on a spectrum, right? So
Mhm.
no, I do get what you're saying. What was I gonna say? Oh, I was just gonna like kind of add on to that, like the whole. I know I forget the company name, but it's a company that I think Elon Musk is like a part of. I don't think he's the sole
Neuralink.
owner. Yes, it is Neuralink. Thank you. And they're the Neuralink chip they put in the pig.
The pig. Yeah,
The
Gertrude the
pig,
pig.
Gertrude the pig. Yes, sir. That's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking
Yeah.
about animal experimentation. And you know, when I first read like that article, basically, Elon Musk and the Neuralink company are trying to experiment using like brain chips. That I guess like the whole sci-fi like actually brain chip, like it connects to like other devices in the area, like electronics, things like that. Like I don't know much about it personally, um, but I know that they're doing experimentation on pigs, specifically Gertrude the pig. And some I'm sure that there are people out there that are absolutely against it. Like that's animal cruelty, that's unjust. And I mean, I'm not gonna dive too deep into my own opinion of it, like as of right now, but I definitely see how that could be an issue, just depending on where people draw their line in their own morality as opposed
for the
to
greater
other
good.
people. Mhm. So
So
no,
at some point, everyone's willing to go so far for the greater good. At the end of the day, I feel like most people's end goal. But the level of that you're willing to push I guess the boundary varies from person to person, even if
and
the end goal is the same.
and I think that kind of like adds even more difficulty to, or I guess even more reason to apply like humanities type things into your own like future career, because it's these types of conversations that lead to better understanding of what I guess should and shouldn't be done. So having this conversation now, I'm able to, I guess, just kind of learn a little bit more about what I should do in my own future. If I ever need to test medical devices, I'll be able to come back to this conversation and like, I guess, just okay, well, we talked about morality, we talked about ethics. Is it ethical for me to test my device on so and so animal or on so and so person, and just things like that. Well, let me see. Curtis, you said mechanical engineer is what you're doing, right?
Yes, sir.
Marco, we might as well just like have all of us share our majors as with what they are
Yeah.
currently,
Biochem, hopefully.
hopefully. David?
Like humanity is involved in everything.
Yeah.
No, you can't say I'm a humanity major, so I know more about ethics than you do. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
I get what you're getting at. It's like you can't really have a superiority complex about
Yeah.
being like specifically
Like when
in
it
there.
comes to how we interact with other people, no matter your field of study, no matter your experience, no matter even your income level, no matter if your home is not, everyone's at an even playing field when it comes to the understanding of how to interact with other people. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I want to say we're all at an equal playing field on like I guess like at the very beginning. But I think someone who puts themselves out there more and someone who thinks about it more is going to end up like understanding more. Wouldn't you agree? Kind of like I mean you're shaping up to be a business major. I mean, as a business major, I'm sure like human interaction is very, very important. At least I would assume so anyways. So wouldn't you venture to say that you would eventually learn more about how to interact with people in a beneficial way than like someone who's never bothered with it like at all?
Yeah, but that's at the end of the day, but like that goes back to the individual person, not really their field of study, their religion, their culture, nothing at all. Just that falls back all the at the to the individual person, not nothing else. There's I don't think there's any external factors that really affect that. Maybe your household and like your parents, your family, I guess maybe. Other
Okay.
than that, yeah.
Okay, I see, I see. So we've kind of talked about like I guess just how we imagine we would apply the humanities, right? To just our I guess to our careers. So like I have to think about customer needs, customer wants, and how to go about that in a way that people, will find ethically acceptable. Curtis, you have to make sure you're understanding other like customer needs and how I guess like ease of access is what I
Yeah,
think you had been getting at.
part of the whole ethical thing too is like the number one thing of being an engineer is public safety and well-being. If
Yeah,
for whatever reason you compromise that, then you will go to jail.
that is true.
Also,
That is
like
the law.
Federal prison.
for you guys that have like engineering fields, a lot of it is through experimentation, right? A lot of it is trial and error.
Absolutely.
So technically, that falls in the branch of history. Even if it's just trial and error, even what they've done before that is related to what you're doing right now, you could use that as a way to
It,
avoid it or as a
yeah,
way to be guided by it. In addition, through trial and error, you could say the first trial that you did, that could be some sort of history and how what you learned from it, what you experienced from it, and what your the decision that's going to be taken based on that first trial. I think.
a big part of getting medical devices registered through the FDA is taking a device that already exists and showing how your device is similar and similar
Sure.
enough to be able to be considered like that was the first trial. I know if you're trying to innovate something like insulin distribution to the body, if you can find a device that is very similar to your device and show how they're similar through I guess just your engineering process and a lot of detail and whatnot or detailing and whatnot, that can serve as like your first trial. And you still have to do a lot more. It takes more than that just to get recognized, but it is something that plays a factor. So yeah, the history of different devices does play a very big role in getting your own device registered. What else? So we talked about like kind of our engineering side of things. Um, what about yours, Aaron? I really don't know a lot about the EC side of things, and I personally like well, I just don't know a lot about it in general. So I don't know how you'd really tie it into anything.
Actually, yeah. So, no, with like all of my stuff, I'm very related to like computers and everything and technology. So there's actually a thing called digital humanities, and basically this is like a creative analysis synthesis, or like, and it's a way of just uh, like it presents information in digital environments, like online, everything like that, like not in person or in books or anything. So, like with this, you can investigate how digital media affects the disciplines in which they are used, right?
Mhm.
So, in practice, with like all this stuff, everything I just stated, we are constantly redefining not only the concept of humanities, but also computing. So, in this manner, we can understand how disciplines, when recalibrated for a digital environment, to contribute to our knowledge of computing. We also understand how computing changes the way we acquire knowledge and experience the knowledge itself. So, in my own opinion, computing is also not only about computers now, but it also involves everything else of how everyone lives their life.
I okay. So I guess we could go off in a massive tangent about like what I would assume to be like social media
Yeah,
because
that plays a part. Yeah.
that feels pretty accurate, I think, to that definition of like how we interact like via the online scope. So like things like Instagram, I guess that's what I use mostly, but like Instagram, Facebook was big for a hot minute. It probably still is big. Twitter's what many would call a cesspool of
TikTok
cesspools.
and Twitter is the
The
Zoomer stuff.
Zoomer stuff. Thank you.
Zoomer stuff.
The Instagram's millennial and Facebook's boomer.
It's very interesting though, and I feel like that's something that definitely probably has gotten a lot of coverage, but it's still something extremely important, I would say, because I mean, social media has become a very big thing, especially with like people our age, right? Like it's just kind of like the new norm of social interaction is via a social media software. So
Especially now with everything being online due to COVID.
mhm. And it's interesting to see how different we interact over social medias than we actually do in person. like
I don't know. This like
Hmm.
I don't like it. I don't know how to explain it.
and I was about to jump into a tangent real quick involving something that I did recently because just I want to say on Thursday, yeah, I believe it was Thursday, this past Thursday, the Game Awards or whatever was hosted, and it's just like a live stream that was on YouTube and like a whole bunch of other broadcasting software. Just giving out awards for like this game or that game, best acting, best sound design, best this, best that. And it was a live broadcast on YouTube, so there is a live chat section.
Mm.
And my eyes were kind of glued like to the live chat section the entire time, just because like I don't know, I get really interested in reading the chat for some reason. And it was so toxic the entire night that the awards were going on. Just no matter what won, or no matter what like world premiere of a new game that's coming out was showcased, no matter what new trailer was out for this or that or news or anything, it was just bombarded with cringe, bad, that
Bad.
sucks. Exactly. Like
Wrong.
stuff that Marco would say on like a day-to-day basis. But it was
Oh my
legit.
God.
Yeah.
It was
I-
genuine though.
I go
Like
accurate.
people were genuinely like just trashing these things. Like and they were most of it was like for new games that were coming out. Like these are world premieres of games that are going to be coming out in the near future. And there were some things that looked genuinely interesting. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like that's kind of neat. It might not be my type of game, but it's certainly neat." But all you had to do is like pan your eyes to the right a little bit and just watch the live chat, eat it alive. I started thinking, and I was talking with my parents a little bit about it, but I started thinking, how many of these people like genuinely, if they were at this event live, would legitimately just start throwing out baseless, completely random, just negativity at it? Like, what purpose does that serve? And how many of these people would actually do this in person? Or are they doing it just because they can, because they're anonymous over the internet? And it's something I was thinking about quite a bit. And I guess that's just kind of like, it kind of changes. I guess like you could narrow it down to how it is being behind a screen change how we interact with one another. But I don't know. I find it very interesting.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like the anonymity part.
I feel like if
Absolutely.
it's through
Yeah.
social media, through the internet, through any sort of device, the quality of interaction itself just gets worse as opposed to actual physical interaction.
Mhm.
How many conversations do you remember that you had with your friends on the phone or just in a chat? Like you actually remember the conversation? I feel like very little, but how many conversations you actually remember with your friends that you had in person? How many interactions you remember that happened in person over the ones that happened over social media?
Yeah, I'll never forget the time our good buddy Josh, we were chilling. The first time I saw it, I think, was in a classroom, like when we were getting ready for UIL. And out of nowhere, Josh just goes like that. Literally like that. I'll never
Ow.
forget that.
Ow.
We might have to adjust those levels in a little bit. But I'll never forget that. But that's not something that would necessarily happen, like I guess over Discord, like we're using right now. just because I guess we're kind of more limited in how we can interact with each other compared to like if Marco says something stupid, I can legitimately physically attack him for it, as opposed to
Okay.
here I literally can't do anything. And social interaction through the internet. But I mean, I think it's absolutely something that's important. And I'm not typically the one to like instantly bash on social media and stuff like that. And actually, I get kind of like butthurt when people do. It's like, oh, this generation sucks. They're always on their phone all the time. Stuff like that
Gen Z moment.
definitely rubs me the wrong way. But it's still something that's important. And I mean, it's still important to recognize the flaws in a system or in something that's going on, even if you, I guess, like don't necessarily think it's the worst thing on the planet. Because nothing's ever perfect, right? Even if things are going decent, it doesn't mean everything's amazing. But I think we're basically out of stuff. I mean, we talked about a lot, honestly, and I feel like we all basically have a good idea of how we could apply the humanities to our major, considering most of our majors are relatively similar in general. Just you build machine parts, I build human parts, Marco builds
Stuff.
stuff, biochemistry major.
Yeah.
Aaron literally builds software. And David
Aaron builds-
builds David builds money. I genuinely feel like we talked quite a decent amount today, especially like about something like this. It's I guess it's kind of like hard to talk about at first, but when you really get into it, you can kind of just take it and run for like forever. So I feel like if I don't cut it now, we might be here literally all day. I hope you guys were able to like learn something. I feel like I was able to learn something by just having an open discussion with you guys about it. It's not every day we get to talk this in depth about something that actually like activates my brain muscles like this, as opposed to playing Valorant for a couple hours straight. That's
don't do
a
that.
thing we don't do. That's a thing we don't do. I hope you guys were genuinely able to like pick up something new. I do think the humanities is a very cool thing, and I think it's fun to talk about. And yeah, you gave me honestly a lot of really good ideas for like my own future and like things to think about for when I actually go to, do whatever it is I end up doing in the future. Who knows? We're literally babies in the grand scheme of college right now, so who knows if I'll change my major to something random. That's about all I got. So thank you for coming to Your Average Podcast.